Yeah.
We keep forgetting.
Now we forget. All right. Good evening, everyone. Zoom included. We got Rad and we got Nina. Okay. All right. So, couple admin notes before. Well, anyway. Let's see. One, the grades. So I apologize, but it's out of my control. The grades sometimes don't display, and it's something in the system that they set. So sometimes it doesn't show. I'm pretty prompt with the grading. And so I got a lot of emails about the grades and why I got an F, and I was like, you did not get an F. No one got an F.
No, that, I almost emailed you on that. What happened was you graded the first part of our thing and the other two pieces hadn't been, like the other 8 points. That the
No,
14.
that's not what I'm talking about. No, not the research discussion. No, I'm talking about the justification.
Oh, okay.
Those things, yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, the research discussion, no, I know those, that work in parts. No, just the deliverables, individual deliverables aside from research discussions. Sometimes the grades there's a setting that only they can change. If they don't change it, then I have to go in and manually put the grades in, although I graded everything. And it's showing on my end, it's not showing on your end. So a lot of people were like, well, I got an F, or, what can I do? And you weren't the only one. And so don't worry about it. But yeah.
Yeah. Oh, you have the minor grammar mistakes.
Like, why I get an F? Yeah, no.
Yeah. I fixed whatever I had to.
Yeah, so don't if you see you got an F and you submitted decent work, more than likely it's something that's administrative in nature and not necessarily or technical. It's not you, okay? And I appreciate you sending me the email asking me, and then I can tell you like, hey, okay. Then all I do is go check, and then I'll fix it if I can. If I can't, then I go. Okay. So for the research groups, everybody knows which groups they're in. I set the groups, should be able to see them, see your group members, right? In the event that you have a group member who's not participating, all I really require of you is that you send one email out to the groups, to the group members, I should say, asking them, hey, when are we going to coordinate to get this stuff done? After that, the person doesn't respond, you gotta move on the way you need to move on, okay? And whoever name is on the submission is what I'm grading, okay? So those internal dynamics, you guys kind of solve those things yourself and figure it out. I don't need to be involved as a referee or anything like that. Just figure it out. If no one's responding or replying back to you, then hey, we make a decision, we're gonna move on without them. And if they happen to come in the back end and there's an alternative option for them to do something based on what the group decides, that's just the way it is. Right? The group says, no, it's too late. It's just the way it is. Okay? And so I'll deal with that with the student after that on my own terms. All right? What else? There might be some emails floating around from one of our students complaining about certain things or whatever the case may be. So just ignore it. Nothing to do with you guys. Just students being students. Okay? So if you don't know if you've been, that means you haven't seen anything, so don't worry about it.
Dr. Case?
Yes, sir.
We received an email this afternoon about attendance.
Yeah.
The university is reminding everybody to be present physically at classes. I understand very well, but something they also asked not to be late. So,
Yeah, I mean,
like my case, I finish work at 5.
Brad, don't worry about it. Brad, don't worry about it. If
thank you,
late,
sir.
it's just me and you. All right.
All right.
We got that together. We're okay.
Thank you, sir.
It's gonna be late. You're coming from work. It's okay. I'm gonna mark you present as long as you show up.
All right.
Yeah. If you don't show up, it's a different ball game. Like today, you're here on Zoom, but you're not here physically, so I have to mark you absent.
You mean
okay? So
you
just
mean
for today?
You mean for today, I will be marked absent, correct?
Absent, yeah, yeah. Although you're here on Zoom, unfortunately, there's nothing I can do about that, but if you're late, not a big deal.
Actually, I talked to the university. I don't want to, I mean, slow, I mean, your work, but I called Carol this afternoon. I told
Mhm.
her I talked to Dr. Case
Mhm.
because I have like a small flu. She said, no worries, stay at home. You don't need to come out
Oh
to
yeah, no,
class.
they'll tell you that. They'll say that. They'll say stay at home
But
because we don't
they,
want school,
but I will be marked absent.
but you'll be marked absent.
Actually, I was driving on the way to university. She told me stay,
Well, don't
stay
come
at
here if
home.
you're sick, man. Stay
So it's,
home. Don't come here if you're sick. It's okay. Stay home. You
Dr.
know.
but you
Chris,
said,
and I'm sorry for interrupting you, but regarding me, as I told you before, my baby was having like a surgery 2 days ago, and I asked Carol if I could be online this time, so she also said to me, okay.
Okay. Right. So the whole attendance thing, if you work something out with Carol, that's
Yeah.
fine. I'm okay with it. Administratively, I have to mark you absent. But if Carol goes in the system and she knows she told you okay, she'll change it.
Okay.
okay, see.
You see what I'm saying? So she will mark you accordingly based on whatever requirement she has, but internally in my system, I have to mark you absent, but then she'll look at it prior to, whatever thing she has to send in and say, okay, I told him that she could, she's good to go with the baby. Everybody's understand the situation. So we go, she's
Okay, see.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I feel better now.
preparing, when she reports it, she'll report you present.
Mhm.
Okay? Just make sure
She's
you confer that with her, and make sure you get to go, because when they come check the school out, they don't come to me, they go to Carol.
mhm.
They check the system, and then they go to Carol and say they want to see your records. They don't call Dr. Case and like, hey, but this person, whatever I put in the system, like, okay, the person who's absent, okay, how many times, what do you have in your system? Whatever Carol gives them is what Carol gives them. Okay?
Yeah, she said actually they focus on like frequent flyers, if I can call it like this, like
Mhm.
frequent cases, like every other week
Right. If
the
it's
student
habitual,
calls. Yeah, but
yeah,
from
yeah,
time to
what,
time, like once
yeah, once
per,
or twice out of
yeah.
the 8 weeks is a lot, but still that's tolerable. We're looking for people that do like miss half of, 3/4 of the session. Those are the folks they're looking for.
Yeah.
So you'll be fine.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Any other questions? No, we're
No,
good?
thank you, doctor. Thank you.
Okay. All right, how's everybody looking on their paper? Moving along, okay? Topics okay, like, no, not really?
I have a different question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I don't know when this changed, but about a year and a half ago, when I looked into the APA 7 manual,
Mhm.
it said for 3 or more authors.
Yeah.
For the first instance, you have to go up to 7 or 9 authors.
Okay.
And then every subsequent citation with a similar
You at all?
reference, you put at all.
Okay.
But now when I'm checking, all of them are saying
You just use
even
it
in the
all.
first instance.
Right, even
So
though
when did this change, if you know at all?
it just changed it in that manual, that version. Yeah. It just
Six,
changed.
it was all
Yeah.
at my
But
first
when
one.
was this released?
This was about a year ago, year or so, year and a half maybe.
Because I try to be as accurate as possible.
Yeah,
As
I
far
think
as,
about a year.
2020.
Yeah, so, more than a year. But, yeah, but that's what I was saying, for the first instance, and it's at all, but it used to be, yeah, the first instance you would put all the authors down, and then after that you use at all, but now it's everything, 3 or more is at all. Okay? So, we're good. I'm not taking a lot of points off for, citation stuff, but I need to get your attention. All right, and so the way only I get your attention is to take points off. But I try not to be too crazy with it, because I know that it takes a little bit of time to understand when to cite, deciding format is pretty straightforward, but check the APA manual. But when the site is really, sometimes difficult for a lot of students, so it takes time to learn. But I don't take too many points off because the content is really what's driving what I was looking at. And although my comments may be focusing on the structure and format because that's normally where the deficiencies are, but content is what's driving my grading. It's not the, necessarily the formatting of the grammatical errors and that kind of thing. Right? Like there's people have grammatical errors on there with justification. I just noted it like, hey, you got some grammatical errors, fix it, but you still got full credit. All right, because the content is there, what I'm looking for is there, substance. So, just it's a work in progress. Just keep, that's what I say, keep the APA manual close by, and reference it, whenever you're not sure, when you think you're not sure. But I usually point out most of the stuff. And again, because it changes frequently, sometimes I put something down, and then like some of the students say, "Hey, Dr. King, that's not what the APA manual says. They changed it." All right, so okay, cool, appreciate it. So it's a living document. They're always changing stuff midstream. It says it in 7, and then someone else said like, oh, there's an addendum or something, or they changed something in the middle of the year. All right, so that's fine. If it's something that you see and it doesn't jive with the APA manual from what I'm saying, just let me know.
This is my 4th APA manual.
Yeah.
Over the career.
Yeah, it changes, so it's okay. All right, don't be. I don't think I have to say this. Don't be afraid to ask me a question or like, hey, challenge things that you're like, hey, I'm not really sure about it. Being a doctoral student, don't know that it's a mistake, then you got to correct me also. Like, hey, Dr. King, this is not what it said. And I go, oh, you're right. And then, I'm not one of those teachers that like, I got to be right. I don't have to be right. I'd rather be wrong than true. You got to learn something. All right? Okay. All right, let's get started. So, that's it. Any more questions? No, we're good. I think, is Monday a holiday? No, that's President's Day. There's like a few holidays coming up. Either way, you guys pay attention to that. Couple of days off. I don't know how often you guys come to class. And once a week, twice a week. I don't know. Once. Okay, so yeah. We're out of luck. We gotta come to class Tuesday. Making the holidays for us. Right? Okay. Major aspects, of course, of HR is employment law, right? Really, that's really what HR is about at the end of the day. It's about what laws on the books and how do we go about making sure that we as a company stay within the regulations and the mandates and all this other stuff, okay? And so employment law really drives a lot of the initiative that at the more personnel level, right? Taking care of the folks and making sure that they have a good work environment, make sure they get paid on time, making sure we can address situations when it comes to family things, that kind of thing, vacation, all that good stuff, right? So employment law is really at the core of HR and what HR does, right? Now at the strategic level, right, where we're looking at these, big Department of Labor laws, acts, and how do these particular pieces of legislation, how do they affect our strategic outlook, our strategic objectives, right? Can we not do something now because the new labor law has come on board and we have to adhere to it? Is that going to affect, what we have planned in the next couple of years, right? How is the, increase in minimum wage per se? How does that affect our strategic objective, right? May not seem like it's going to be too big of a deal, right? It may seem like it's all positive, right? Oh, minimum wage is going to go up, but it's not. For companies, they look at it, it's money, right? It's money, extra money going out the door. Payroll is already a certain amount. Now you're asking me to increase the pay with no guarantee of increased productivity. And that's where the issue comes in. Just because I raise the pay doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to make more revenue or I'm going to make more profits at the end of the day. So companies look at it and say, okay, where are we going to offset this particular cost, this liability, right? And this is where you get into the issue of companies or, states instituting a certain minimum wage, right? And you see certain companies kind of taking it on early where they have a graduated scale, all right? 2022, we're gonna bump it up by $1. 2023, we'll bump it up by 2. 2024, we'll bump it up by another 2, or then we'll bump it up to 1. So incrementally, by the time, they get to 2025, they've reached the mandate or requirement to have minimum wage of $15, but they've done it over a certain period of time based on what our objectives are, based on how much money we have that we've allocated for payroll and manpower, and what we can really effectively see as our, long-term revenue stream, right? Do we plan or do we see a scenario where we're going to be making more money? Is there going to be some project down the road that we're going to invest in that's going to help us be, more efficient, right? AI, for instance, right? That's a big one that a lot of companies are using now in order to say, you know what, we can apply a pay raise in general because we're going to have cost savings on this side from the AI. Now, where do we implement the AI and what time, that kind of thing, really, and at this aspect at this point is really about, okay, when do I need to implement this increase in pay, right? And kind of look in the both and say, okay, what's the timing like, and try to figure out the proper timing of how quickly can I get AI on board and, kind of streamline some of these processes. And then when will I see a return on my AI investment that's going to offset not only does the pay go up, right, for the person, right? And does the liability increase for the employee just in the raw payment, right? But what else goes up for the company when pay goes up?
Payroll tax.
Payroll taxes, okay? Payroll taxes go up. And so does other things, right? So now, what's that?
Expenditure.
Yeah, there's other stuff that goes on, right? Your contribution to your IRAs, your 401ks, those are dependent on how much you decide of your salary you're gonna put in, right? So let's just say I put in 5% of my salary towards my 401k, and then my pay goes up. Guess what? The company has to match that. They have to still keep matching that 5%. Right?
That's the 3%.
Right. Well, that's
They only
the only match. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The matching.
Match.
And that's at the lower pay band. That employment law really dictates, what you want to make sure that, you have the organizational culture set to where people understand what their rights are, right? What they're entitled to, okay? So that they can maximize that stuff. Because you want your employees to take advantage of all the programs that are available to them, right? You don't want to just sit around because there's pots of money that get allocated to these things, and the pots of money just sit there. They don't get touched. They just kind of just okay. And then at the end of the year, if there's something left, then they kind of roll it over or decide to do something else with it. But usually that is not the case, right? So employment law plays a big role in what we do. Okay. All right. So before I get started on all this stuff, what I want to do is, as a group, right, the three of you guys are in here, what I want you to do, take about 10 minutes. I want you to look up the top 5 labor laws or acts. Okay, the top 5, whatever comes up, the top 5, and just a little description of each one. Okay, you guys can do it as a group. That's fine. EMAT, you can do it. Rad, you guys can do it individually. Okay. Damani, is that, Narat, huh? Yeah, Nima, yeah. You guys can do it individually. Just look for the top 5, labor laws or acts related to HR. And just a little description of what each one is, okay? I'm not looking this way, let me this way.
Because you're looking at.
Yeah, I'm
them.
looking at them.
Oh, in the
Um,
way.
Did you say in the US or?
In the US, US specific, yeah. And the labor laws are different in other places. US specific, top 5, Department of Labor acts or legislation or US government, labor law. Okay? You got about 10 minutes.
So I got 7 here. So from Business News Daily. Got the new FMLA, employee leave.
Yeah, and ADA is the one here.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Civil rights. Labor training,
Yeah, ADA.
OSHA.
So child labor laws,
Come on, Josh.
OSHA. You don't wanna mess with Cal OSHA. Hi, Joshua. How are you, sir?
Title 7, civil rights.
All right, go up.
Title 7.
Can you fill Joshua in?
Oh, we're looking at the top 5 US labor laws. So as a group, collectively.
Family and medical leave.
Yeah, FMLA. Collectively as a group will work. Well, we got public right now. We got FMLA, right?
Yeah.
We got Title 7,
Title 7. OSHA.
OSHA, ADA, child labor laws. 5.
And,
What?
federal legal standards.
Work compensation.
Mm-hmm.
Work, what did I say?
Workers' compensation.
Did you write it down?
Yeah, I can write that down,
Union.
Did you
Where is that?
All my stuff really take care of before you can the federal government. I had to deal with the union. And they were a hindrance to getting things done. And I don't think any federal employee should be unionized, but yeah. So like when military law enforcement hired on civilian police officers, they all joined the union, and when they joined the union, they complained about every little thing, like if they didn't want to do something, they filed a union complaint. So they hired a retired colonel to be the deputy for the whole provost marshal of the police department, and he dealt only with union, and he had 2 drawers and a big file cabinet that were all union complaints.
do you think they misuse?
Oh, yeah,
benefits?
yeah.
Yeah. I would say that.
Yeah, and plus, like in the federal government, union, like the shop, what's called a shop steward. So that's the union representative. So when they become a shop steward, a lot of them do it for the rest of their government career. And they never do their job again, but no one can get hired into their position because they're getting paid not to do their job. So, and then if you want to look at teachers unions, they make it hard to fire incompetent teachers. My dad was a principal, he dealt with that years ago, where he had teachers that he couldn't fire because the union protected them, and they were incompetent teachers, they were always late, and all kinds of, so. Yeah. Unions are what killed Detroit, the auto industry in America, it's what killed Detroit, because it cost, I think it was $85 Like an employee who put one part on a vehicle costs the company $85 an hour. Even though they didn't make $85 an hour, that was the cost with all the collective bargaining. That's why it all outsourced everywhere. Yeah. 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 Fair labor standard,
That's sort of going, get them enrolled and get $100 off your bill.
OSHA,
Title VII.
when I worked at Home Depot, like unions always wanna, union organizations always wanna unionize big box stores. So like when I worked at Home Depot, one of the things is, you know, someone comes in here to talk to you about the union kickback. Like, because it, what I would tell them, I would be really, to them, but, yeah. No, because it costs companies more money than.
But is it not the job of, the formation of unions to protect the?
No, it was
of the
originally.
employees?
So originally when unions were first formed in the US, okay, they had a purpose because there weren't all of these other, like OSHA laws. There weren't any of the fair labor practice laws. There weren't any of the minimum wage. There wasn't any of that. So there wasn't any child labor law. So there was a lot of abuse of employees at that time. But over time, because all the laws have now been in place, the unions
There's no
are
need.
nothing, there's no need for the unions, so they just basically are collecting money. That's why the Supreme Court decision, there was a Supreme Court decision a couple of years ago because someone said, well, I don't want to be in the union, I don't want to pay union dues, I don't believe in what the union does, I shouldn't be forced to pay union dues, and he actually won it in the Supreme Court. So now you don't have to, like, really hit hard in California, you don't have to become a part of the union, so they can't forcibly take your dues. Because some jobs for you to have, you have to be union.
Oh, yeah. I was gonna ask, why won't they get rid of unions?
Because there's too much money at the big union. So like the Teamsters Union, the Electrical Workers Union, the Carpenters Union, the AFL-CIO, the Auto Workers Union, like all of those big unions, the Teachers Union. And the Teachers
So
Union.
basically, their rights are protected in a way, so.
Well, the unions are protected, and they're protected because they give a lot of money to politicians. So the politicians take their money, especially like the school board, you know, the school union. Yeah, it's a crazy.
How will the unions make money to give it?
Through dues. So they charge you dues to be a part of the union.
Yeah.
So you have to pay, but that Supreme Court law changed things. Their decision changed things, saying that if you don't want to pay union dues, you don't have to. So, crazy. Really? Do they have unions where you're from?
Yeah.
Do they have a lot of labor laws like we have here? So the unions are there because the labor laws don't exist.
Right.
What about in, you're from Slovakia?
It's a thing. Minimum wage. Baby pay.
Yeah, I mean, we do have, OSHA, we have, ADA, like,
Yeah, but some of those are probably because of the international business side of things too. So like I look at it that you have, like with all the multinational corporations, certain things have to be done in order, not that all the countries abide by that. Like China, for example, that's horrible to do. Still people indiscriminate.
Right.
Right?
You want?
CCP.
You know, the Chinese Communist Party, the Uyghurs, the Zhejiang, like Mao killed 60 million people, I think. My sister-in-law is from China. Her dad was in a re-education. It gets messed with that. So, no, so states, if I understand your question correctly, so states have laws about unions. So take, for example,
Oh, but this is.
the car manufacturer, right? Automakers and like automakers like BMW, Hyundai, Toyota, Subaru have factories that are in non-union states, they're regular states. So you don't have to be in a union to work at the manufacturing plant. So Hyundai has a huge plant, I think it's in Alabama. And that's where they make all the Sonatas, they make a lot of the cars, actually, they're actually made in the US, they're made in Alabama. Alabama doesn't like unions. So although the unions try and get into Hyundai, Hyundai purposely went to Alabama so they didn't have to deal with unions. But if Hyundai wanted to open in Chicago, Chicago's a very union-friendly state, or Illinois is a very union-friendly state. California is very union-friendly. You don't have a lot of car manufacturers in California because they don't want to have to do unions. That's why there's places like, that's why when Boeing was gonna move from Washington to South Carolina, Washington is very pro-union. South Carolina is very anti-union, they're pro-freedom. And so that's why the union fought so hard to keep Boeing from being able to move. Because they were gonna lose all of them. Because all of them. South Carolina is more business. But Boeing would have to pay less, overall less cost, because they would have to do a collective bargaining, and they're paying all of these exorbitant amounts for things. More so than what people deserve, but that's why I get it. Like, the minimum wage piece too. Minimum wage hurts poor people more than it helps them by tenfold. Because if the minimum wage is $20 an hour, if I'm the business owner, I now have to sell whatever I'm selling to make up for that $20 an hour. So now you work at, like my friend owns a Subway. You go into Subway now, you have to pay $20 an hour. What a sandwich that was $10 last year is now $15 because she's paying $36,000 a year more in labor costs.
Like a life cycle.
Like
But then
$36,000 more.
Yeah. Engagement,
Because of $20 an hour. So it doesn't help the price of things goes up when the minimum wage goes up. Like,
All right. We good? All right,
Because I read this, what is the next step?
let me start with, my Zoom folks. They never get any love. All right, who's there? Randy, Matt, Monty, Laurent. Shorten the name.
No.
Nara, just go Nara?
Yes, just call me
Okay,
Nara,
Nara.
please.
Okay, good. I didn't want to kill your name, Nara. How do you pronounce it?
Nara.
No, the whole thing, your whole name.
Oh, whole name is Naran Satral.
Nara Central. Okay, all right.
Nara.
All right. I'm gonna stick with Nara, yeah. Okay, let's start. Nara, you mind starting?
Can I have more time, please, sir?
One more time. Okay,
Okay,
no
thank-
worries. Somebody,
I can, yes. Hi, Professor.
can you go first?
Yes.
Okay, tell me
So-
what you found. Top 5.
So I'm a HR, so I mainly work with like more of the employee related laws. So the most
Yeah, that's fine.
important,
That's
most
even better.
important, yes.
Go ahead.
So the most important one that I think is the wage and hour laws, right? And that is also linked to the FLSA because it talks about how employer is supposed to pay employees the minimum wages and the overtime wages, based on the number of hours worked in a day or in a week. For example, like in California, you have to, anything worked over 40 hours a week is overtime, right? Or anything works over 8 hours a day is overtime. Anything works over 12 hours a day is double time. So employers are supposed to follow all of that. And these are the laws like that is directly linked with the FLSA, which talks about the overtime pay, right? Which is 1.5 times, and the double time, which is twice the base rate.
Okay. Can I ask a question? How does the Lilly Ledbetter Act fit into
What,
this?
sorry?
Lilly Ledbetter? Have you heard the Lilly Ledbetter Act?
No, maybe not.
Okay. Lilly Ledbetter falls under FSLA, and what it talks about is overtime pay for salaried
Yes,
people, right? And so
yes,
about how they get paid over. Normally salaried folks don't get paid overtime. And
yes.
so what's happening is that they were basically doing 90 hours a week, and they're on salary, so you got no place to go. So now the law says that anything over, is it still anything over 40 hours, no matter what? It's time and a
Yes,
half?
40 hours a week, yes.
Okay, so now it
But
applies to, go ahead.
sorry to interrupt, but the pay, what salary employees are paid, like in California, they are still exempt from overtime pay. So
Okay,
they're still, yes.
so
It all
California's
depends
not,
on the,
California's
yes,
not adhering to the act.
yes, yes. So it all depends on the employer, what type of policies they have imposed in their company.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
it all depends. So, but like in my company, all salary employees are exempt from
okay.
overtime. So if you are
Mm.
working 6 hours, you're gonna get paid your salary. If you're working 10 hours a day, you're still gonna get paid,
There your
your
salary.
salary.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what's the next one you got?
So question here.
One?
Sorry, Professor. Question.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, if there is a, depending on the company, it's a different, So you said if there is at the company who or the employee who works at 6 hours in a day in the 6 days, that's 36 hours for the
Yes.
week, right? So that following week, 36 hours. And if they work like one day more than like a 6 hours, and then it increased it says like it's actually like on the schedule it's at 6 hours, but if the person worked like 8 hours, does the 2 hours counted on our time, or it doesn't because of the like
No.
whole week is the 40 hours?
So overtime, remember, overtime is always after 8 hours a day. Anything worked before that is not considered as overtime.
Okay.
Yeah.
So anything you do prior to your 8 hour period starting and anything you do after that doesn't count. So any prep work, getting dressed, changing uniforms, usually doesn't count towards your 8 hours. It depends on the industry, like police officers, firemen, those kind of things, military folks, usually as soon as you wake up, the clock is ticking, right? But we're kind of on salary, sort of. But there's other industries where, your prep time, if you're working at Starbucks or if you're working at a restaurant or something like that, the time that you take to put your smock on and get ready and get your stuff together, that doesn't count for pay, right? It's not until you actually punch in and, okay, now it starts, okay?
Can it ever be a mutual agreement between the employer and the employee? If the employee is ready to not get paid more than
What do you mean?
one, after 40 hours? Can there be a law
No.
or contract between the employee and the employer?
No. There's no negotiating, these particular
After
things.
40 hours, I'm going to pay you.
Yeah, it's,
Are you ready?
yeah, by law, yeah, you have to do it. Even if the employee says, no, don't worry about it, whatever the case may be, you pay the employee, because the employee will come back and bite you in the butt.
And that's why, like, when I worked at Home Depot, you weren't allowed, because the time clock is on a 6 minute cycle. So you weren't allowed to clock in more than 6 minutes early or more than 6 minutes late.
Right.
So if you started work at 9, you couldn't clock in before 8:15 before or after 8:56. Like because then then it would roll into more time and you could end up hitting, you could end up in that pay period hitting all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's
Yeah,
really,
see,
it's nuanced. Plus lunch,
see,
like
me as an
5 hours.
employer, yeah, I'm sorry. Being an HR, we as an employer, we don't do that. If employee clocked in at 9:50 and his shift starts at 10, he gets paid for that 10 minutes.
Yeah,
We-
but where I work, they told you not to do that because they didn't wanna pay that.
Overtime, yes.
Yeah,
A
yeah,
lot
yeah.
of
So
companies
they-
do that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very dependent on the company and their policy and how they handle overtime.
Yeah.
But the rules are the rules. How you do it internally as far as, okay, making sure that people don't clock in before or after, or don't get, don't get paid for time that they really shouldn't get paid for, is all internal. As long as they fit that guideline of, hey, at the end of the day, is it 40 hours a week or is it more? That's it, okay? All right, thank you, Imani. I'm gonna move to Nara. You ready? I just need one.
So Teresa, sorry, one more question. So
Okay.
we're talking about the company policy. What if there is a company policy and the schedules makes like 12 hours in a day and switching 12 hours? So if the person working 12 hours, does it count like a 4 hours is it overtime? Because most
Yeah.
company doesn't pay like overtime for the 12-hour shifts.
No,
It is.
not. Go ahead, Imani.
So sorry. It is. It counts as overtime. Yes.
Not if it's your shift.
Yeah.
Like
That doesn't
nurses,
count.
police officers,
Right, that doesn't,
firefighters,
no.
that's a
Yes.
different, they're under
Yeah.
12-hour shifts.
If
If
you're
they
Yeah.
work beyond the 12 hours, then there's overtime
yeah.
that comes in.
If your shift is a 12-hour shift or your shift is a 10-hour shift, that's your shift. All right. At the end of the day, if that exceeds 40 hours, then that's what it is, right? But the way they
Yes.
set it up is saying, hey, you got a 12-hour shift, we're gonna give you 3 12-hour shifts, or 4 12-hour, whatever it is, right? But 40 hours is 40 hours. It's an absolute value. There's no, hey, 12 hours and then 8 of those hours are good and 4 hours of overtime. That's not how it works. Because most people tend to work 8-hour shifts, 9 to 5, whatever the case may be. But you have those other industries that 12-hour shifts are what works, police officers, fire department, 24-hour shifts, right? You're not paying somebody overtime for, whatever, 16 other hours because they over 8 hours.
They're
Right.
sleeping 9 of
All right,
them.
they're sleeping, not, yeah, it doesn't work that way, right? So again, it's all dependent on the company and how they set it up, but the law is 40 hours, over 40 hours overtime, okay? All right, you ready now?
Yeah.
Fine, give me one.
So like basically like my industry is like a hotel business mostly. So we do work like a more than 8-hour shift, and then we never actually had like if we have a 12-hour shift, we never count as it's overtime. But
Okay.
we do arrange that those things like if the person working in a 12 hours, then next day full day off, more than 24 hours off, and then maybe half day off, like basically 36 hours off and 12-hour shift off. So that's
Okay.
how we manage the workforce and manage the hours and the payment. Same thing. It's mostly like majority payment is it's a minimum and plus like if we're working like plus hour, like it's a tips, like tip system is more than like the wages. So it's depending on our level, it depends how many like hours working, and then we count the tips for them, something like that.
Okay, but what act did you find? What did you find that is a labor law out of the top 5 that you looked at? Just
So
give me.
it's like, I guess it's just like not about the law, it's because of the company rules and like
No,
because
no. You're not. No, I'm talking about just what we're supposed to be doing. Supposed to be looking up 5 labor law, employment labor law acts or legislation. Did you
oh
not? Yeah, I'll
yeah,
come back. So
okay.
look up 5 labor law, employment law acts or legislation, okay?
So like does it about supposed to be like related? It could be like a paid sick or like holiday vacation payments.
Whatever law, just put in labor laws, employment law, and then see what comes up,
Okay.
okay? All right, I'll come back to you. All right, Nehemiah, what'd you get? What you got?
Yes, doctor. I was searching about the acts and laws as you told us. One of them was the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, which is a
Say it
federal
again, the workforce, what?
Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, WIOA, which is a federal law that governs the operation of the public workforce system in the US. And it aims to provide comprehensive and coordinated employment and training services to job seekers for people who don't find job yet, and even to improve employers' jobs with a particular focus on this focus on people who feel that they are not uh, maybe disadvantaged individuals. Yeah.
Okay, I never heard that one before. That's a new one. All right, that'll work. Appreciate it, thank you.
You're
Brad, you. Or anybody got questions, comments? Brad, no, Brad, oh, there you go.
Yes, Dr. Case. Sorry, I'm not putting my camera
okay.
as I I
You'll be
have a flu.
fine.
Yeah, I found interesting laws. I found, I mean, for me, I can see something like termination of employment, which is very significant for me because many cases on a daily basis happen, whether in the US or globally. There is a different
What law is that attributed to? What legislation is that attributed to?
the termination of employment.
Is that what it's called?
Yes, sir. There is termination of employment under which there is wrongful termination, which is the
But is
most,
that is that the act? Is that the act? Is that the federal act or the federal legislation that's out there? That's what it's called. I understand the concept. I understand what you're saying, but what's the actual name of the act? Like, is it
okay, I
the
see.
Disabilities Act? Is it the Genetic Information Act? Is it the Fair Pay Act or Equal Pay Act? What kind of act is it?
I can do a very quick search
Okay,
on Google.
so do a quick search and then we'll come back to
Okay,
you.
thanks.
Okay. Marcus, so what you got?
The ADA, American with Disabilities Act.
Okay, ADA. All right. What's the ADA about?
ADA is about, not discriminating against people who have disabilities and not telling them they can't get a job because of their disability.
Okay. All right. So ADAs are real important because usually they probably are the most I don't say disadvantaged group, but they're the group that really they get treated the kind of at the bottom, right? Because people see someone coming in a wheelchair and that kind of thing. And companies are already not upset, but companies already have some reservations and hesitation because a lot of the ways that ADAs had an impact on buildings and structures and, how we set up our desks, literally what kind of cubicles we buy, right? Because there has to be a certain amount of row space and clearance for wheelchairs and people that have disabilities to move around, elevators, platforms, parking spaces, bathrooms, right? All these other things that go with ADA, companies have to pay for that, right? And so ADA is usually very, not contentious, but a lot of companies have not been good fit folks as far as ADA goes. So they've been, kind of like, hey, yeah, we want to hire them, but is there another option, right? We want to bring them on, but is there not another option? Most companies nowadays are pretty good about, making sure that they don't discriminate against folks with disabilities because it's a really stiff, heavy penalty for that. especially if you have someone who's very capable, just happens to be in a wheelchair. You know, I mean, it happens, right? But in addition to that, when you have folks with disabilities, you have something called reasonable accommodation, right? And so when you have reasonable accommodation, now means the company, I have to do certain things to make sure I accommodate that person's disability to a certain degree, right? As long as it's not undue burden for me financially, I can ask the company to say, look, my eyesight isn't that great. I have the doctors, you know, said, hey, I'm going blind in one eye. And so I need a bigger computer, or I need something to help me at work. So you need to accommodate that, right? That doesn't really cost the company that much money. It's okay. But let's just say you have someone in a wheelchair, right? And they say, well, you know, I want to get hired here. Great. You guys don't have an elevator. Well, put in an elevator. Yeah. Okay, big cost, right? That's undue burden, undue financial burden. So the company can say, no, we're not gonna hire you because we can't absorb that kind of financial burden. Even the companies like Microsoft or, you know, making lots of money, if they don't have an elevator and someone comes in and says, I need you to put an elevator in, they can still say no. It's still a financial burden, right? Even if they get, you know, lots of cash on hand, it's still, from a business aspect, elevator minimum is gonna cost you $150,000 to put in any building, right? And then how many do you put in? So I put in one, like what if you wanna go to the other side of the building? I gotta put one over there too, all right? And so with that comes different things, right? Structurally, the building may not be able to handle it, right? And so that means you have to do reinforcement. It starts to add up very quickly when you start talking about those things. So ADA is a pretty good one that's really common. All right, you ready, Anna?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, give it to me.
I think for me the most important after the wages and any is OSHA.
OSHA, okay, good one.
Because I don't want to work in the people.
All right, OSHA, all right. Anybody know what OSHA stands for?
Occupational Safety Health Administration.
All right, what does OSHA do?
You protect us.
Protect us,
Keep everything clean.
keep everything clean, okay, all right.
And
Safe working conditions.
Safe working conditions, okay.
MSDS.
MSDS is
I
that,
used to teach a class on Cal OSHA.
okay, all right.
Well, first.
Yeah, so OSHAs are kind of safety police, all right, making sure that the workplace is safe and that we have programs in place that make sure that the workplace is safe depending on, you know, what you're doing, right? Every industry has standard OSHA rules and then there's specific ones for that industry, right? Construction, fall programs, you know, lock and key programs if you're dealing with, you know, tag out, lockout, tag out, stuff like that, right? Hazardous materials, right? If you go to a company that does, you know, works with a lot of chemicals, their OSHA standards and requirements are really high, right? Because not only are we dealing with chemicals internally, but how are you handling the waste, right? Where's the waste going, right? And so this was a really big deal back in the day when companies were digging holes and dropping, you know, waste into the ground or waste into the water, right? And we still do it now, right? If you go out, even though it's a terrible idea, but if you go out, you know, what you would call it, the plant here that's on Ocean, you know, on the 5. You got, when you're going down the 5 North and you're going towards North County, you go towards LA, on the left-hand side is the power plant.
Oh, yeah.
That they don't use anymore,
Like
right?
decommissioned.
Yeah, they decommissioned it, put a whole bunch of money in it, it's not working, right? But the waste from there, right? The waste from there and some of the waste from Pendleton, right? From what they do, right? What they've done is they put it in these containers, right? And they take them out into the water and they dump them in the water, right? The problem with that is that the containers that they put them in are not designed for waste, right? And so you run into these issues where the container starts to degrade on the water after a while. Then guess what? It cracks, it opens, and then stuff starts leaking out. So now you have this contaminated water, contaminated earth, right? There's a lot of movies based on a lot of stories about waste treatments, about how companies would just put it in the ground and it would taint the water table, right? they put it in the ground so low that it messes with the water, and now people are drinking bad water, right? They're using bad water to bathe and everything.
Yeah, well, that's one of the issues they have down in ID with the Tijuana River and all the waste that comes through that. That's why the beaches in ID are always closed, is because it comes from the Mexico side.
Yeah.
There's always a big battle. Like ID is right, their current mayor is really doing a lot of stuff to try and improve all of that
Yeah.
and get the federal government involved.
But it's not true that just the tube is very short. It's not long enough to go very deep to the ocean.
No,
Because,
they have a lot of spillover from that. It's a very poorly built and maintained plant on the Mexican side. So it's not up to like what US standards would be
No, it's
for
not
environmental
the, I
stuff.
think it's the tube that.
Yeah,
Like
but
the sewage. It's
But
not
it
long enough.
overflows all the day it causes, yeah.
The bacteria levels
Yes.
increase.
Ebola
And
Yeah.
now they're starting to move further north.
Yeah, yeah, so they'll close it down, like even the other day, based on the rain and the floods, they shut down a couple beaches because the water, bacteria level went up. But it is coming from Tijuana side, but, you know, it's not just waste treatment, it's just the fact that people dump garbage there, you know, people don't, they use the bathroom there, they do everything there, right? It's just kind of, yeah, the environment is just not well maintained. And so in conjunction with the waste material and this human waste, all those things kind of seep into the water, right?
You go for a beach walk.
You go for a beach, all right, you know, you go into the water, you're gonna get sick, you're gonna die. All right, so, what am I looking at? 4, all right, one more.
Dr. Case, I think I found something.
Okay, what you got?
All right. So in terms of acts, I found the first one is the Federal Labor Standards Act.
We got that one already.
Already got this.
Yeah.
How about the National Labor Relation Act gives the private sector workers the right to organize into unions and bargain
All right,
collectively.
that's a good one. Yeah, the NLRA, that's a good one. Okay. What is
Another
it,
one.
and what is it about?
Yeah, it gives the right to private sector workers to involve in union activities.
Okay.
And
All right.
to be able to bargain collectively.
Collectively, right.
Yeah. There is
Okay.
another
So,
one.
go
Sorry.
ahead. No, go
I
ahead.
can see some another one very critical for especially for like for the construction sector. This one is called Occupational Safety and Health Act.
Yeah, we got that one
Oh,
too.
you already okay.
Yeah, we got it.
The last.
You're good. You're good, Rad. We just needed
Okay.
one. Yeah, we're good. Appreciate it.
I'm good. Thanks.
So when it comes to NLRA and unions and all that stuff and collective bargaining, heard you guys having a conversation about that, you and Joshua. So unions are just not, you know, the state of America has changed. And unions are just not, companies don't like unions. Okay, they're not pro-union in the United States in general for the most part, right? Just because, you know, as a union, you do have more power as a group, right? And it restricts the company from doing a lot of things that they would do, maybe not willingly, but they really pull back a lot of incentives and a lot of benefits when they're unionized. Okay, because the union, you know, first thing, as a union, they collect dues. All right, so as a union member, you gotta pay, right? But with that pay comes representation, right? And you get to go, you know, whatever, to the union meetings, and the rep goes to the leadership and says, hey, we want this, this, and that, right? It's easier for the companies to kind of deal with individual folks than deal with the union, right? Because individually, although we all have different, you know, things we want, it's just easier for me as a big company to deal with it individually. When you come as a union, as a group, it's really hard because now if we agree on something, right, you still have to take it back to the group. It has to be ratified. Okay? And if it's not ratified because you got one person or two people in the union that don't like it, it's not going to go anywhere. It's going to get stuck, right? And so a lot of times you'll see that, you know, the union reps and the, you know, leadership will agree on something, they take it back to the people, to the workforce, and the workforce like, nah, we don't like that. So guess what? Gotta go back to leadership and say, look, the union wants this, or the workforce wants more of this, and the company more likely to be like, look, something has to give, is the issue.
So my brother-in-law works for Kaiser
Mhm.
as a medical coder. They're union.
Yeah, there you go.
So one of the things that, there's a big industry of contract coders, my brother-in-law used to be. So the union within, so Kaiser is talking about, well, we're just gonna fire all of our coders, pay less money to contractors
contractor, yeah.
and your,
Yeah.
because they're wanting more and more and more and more and
Mhm.
more, so they're just gonna, they end up getting rid of them,
Yeah.
and he keeps telling them, because he was a contract coder for so long, he keeps telling them, you don't know how good you have it
Right.
here, just shut up about it and be happy.
Yeah. Unions, early on in our history, unions were great because we had a lack of really solid labor laws that protected the employee, right? And so the best way to get something done was to come together as a union in order to go to the bar, because at that point, although there were other people waiting to work, if everyone picked up and left, right, I could get a new group in, but I probably have to train them, right? It'd probably be a loss of productivity. There's a lot of things that would happen. And so, unions were effective back then. But then as time went on, we had a few corruption cases, Jimmy Hoffa, these other folks that are very big union guys. The mob started infiltrating the union and really using the union as their piggy bank, right? Leaning on the union. And so unions kind of lost their steam, because a lot of companies were like, I'm not gonna get strong armed by the mob, by the mafia, right? The money's going to the mafia. They're literally taking the money from the company and funneling it to support whatever payments or whatever they had to do to pay the mafia. And so unions lost their luster, and the labor laws got better as far as protection for employees, right? Employees were getting certain benefits that they wanted on an individual basis, categorically across the board, right? Everybody got sick leave, everybody got vacation pay, everybody got, if you were pregnant, you got certain this, that. So the laws got better, so the need for union started to go down. The desire to have a union, pay union dues, go to meetings, vote on things, that the appetite for that decreased, right? And so you see even now, there's a couple of companies that have had union issues, right? Anybody been keeping up with any of the union stuff?
Well, the big three automakers did recently.
Yeah. And the United Auto Workers, right?
And the UAW.
Had a big issue with their union, right? Who else?
Several of the school districts with unions are dealing with lots of things. LA's always in stuff, Seattle's always in stuff, Chicago's always in stuff, New York's always in stuff.
You see, University of California system is currently right now going through a union fight, going through fight with the teachers and.
Janet Reno was still head of
Yes.
the union.
Mhm. So they're going through a whole union thing about grad students, how much they get paid, and just little very nuanced things that you wouldn't think about, all right? But they're going, say, hey, we're not coming to work. All right, our union said we're gonna strike. So they can do that, right? Starbucks, right? Let a few of their locations unionize, right? Because they were tired of whatever, not getting enough pay. And so that was okay for a little bit, but it kind of backfired on the employees, right, with the union.
How does it start that, I know, like you said, Starbucks got union, how does it start? Like, is it like group of employees, they set up the agreement, they said, they're gonna have employers to.
Yeah.
Usually a union will go, like when I was talking about Home Depot, there were union people who would come and talk to Home Depot employees about trying to unionize. So it's unions wanting to expand, like SEIU, the Service Employees, SEIU does a lot of that stuff. Like they cause, in the service industries, they cause a lot of issues for restaurant chains and hotel chains. Those are all SEIU folks.
Yeah. So with the union, basically, if, you know, you have one person in the office or in the department or the section or the store that, you know, says, hey, let's get a union started, right? It's just a matter of speaking to them. And then what they'll do is they'll basically go to the leadership and say, hey, look, we are gonna start a union, right? And then the company will go, well, what's the problem? What is it you're looking for? Because they don't want that. They don't want a union. So they'll, what you looking for? And they'll say, well, I want more pay. What they'll do is they'll try to focus on that one person and say, we'll give you more pay. You want more pay? No problem. We'll bump your pay up. We're not bumping anybody else's pay up, but we'll bump your pay up because you're the one, you know, voicing the grievance. Okay. And then the employee will go, okay, well, that's great, but what about my coworkers, right? If they see I got a pay raise, they're gonna want a pay raise too. And so the employees have to get permission from the company to initiate a union. They
Yeah,
just can't
that's
say
right.
we're starting a union, that's that, right? They have to ask the company, and the company has to say yes or no.
If they say no?
If they say no, then there's no union, right? So everything that comes to the table, everything that's done is gonna be done on an individual basis,
Why
right?
would they
But why
have it?
would they say yes?
Why would they say yes?
Yeah, that's
To
what
appease
it is.
the workforce, you know?
Some of it is based off of the states where they are. In
Yeah.
California, Washington, New York, Illinois, those are very pro-union.
Yeah, the union state, yeah. And,
Where's Toyota's big manufacturer, Alabama?
no,
Mississippi? I know it's in the
no.
South, they have a big one, but they
No.
chose that state because it's a non-union state.
Yeah, I don't remember where, but, well, Texas, Plano, Texas is where,
Big one.
the headquarters and that kind of thing. But a lot of states are pro-union, right? And there's certain industries within those, like, I'm from New York, the garbage men union, right? They've been unionized since, I don't know how long, forever and a day, right? Yeah, they've been unionized forever, right? United Auto Workers. Some of these industries are historically, they're unionized because it works better for them, right? Because of the different components and different aspects of the job, especially the United Auto Workers.
Proactive to
Yeah,
fight for.
to fight for, you know, things internationally. This is where the kind of the global aspect comes in where, you know, if we're getting parts made in another country and then they're coming here, is that taking a job away from somebody here, right? Is that decreasing, you know, our pay because we don't need to pay somebody as much to do it here as we can do it out someplace else? We outsource, okay? And so a lot of unions will fight against outsourcing, against, you know, we need to make it in America. You know, if we are, you know, doing something that is external to the company, that's gonna affect the workforce, we need to know about it. And we also need to make sure that we get appropriate, compensation for those things, all right? It's not my fault you decide you want to outsource, or it's not our fault that you decide you want to go a different direction, all right? And so you gotta take all the things into consideration, but then if the company says no union, it's something the employer say, okay, well, we're gonna either leave, right? Or we'll get a lawyer and then go through this wrangling. So when Starbucks employees started talking about union, it took them almost a year for Starbucks to say, fine, start a union, okay? But when they started the union,
Why would they say yes?
because at some point you have to, it's not just about the internal workings, it's about the public perception, Also. right? And just saying, look, okay, fine, you want to start a union? Is that bad? Or you think it's that bad? Fine, right? And then Starbucks did it on location. They didn't do it as a whole for the company. It just said, okay, this location, because not every location wanted to start a union. So specifically, it was certain locations said, we want to start a union. Okay, start a union, great. What started happening is, which is not legal, it's a form of retaliation. Okay, and so we talk about retaliation, we're talking about, you know, if a company or somebody does something to you based on the fact that you know, said something bad about them, or you brought up a point, or you brought a grievance against them, and now they want to get back at you, right? They're mad, they're upset, so they want to do something to you. So what started happening with the Starbucks employees is that they noticed their shifts would get shorter, or they wouldn't get as much hours as they used to get, right? And just certain things weren't happening anymore like they used to, because you're unionized now, Okay, there's different rules. You just can't walk into the office now and talk to the boss. Guess what? Talk to union rep, and union rep will come talk to me. Okay?
So they're not fully union.
No, they're not. Yeah.
They have 385 plus stores unionized with 9,500 partners, but it has,
Right.
like, it's not.
No, it's not as a whole, not as a company. No, it's individual units, individual stores, and most of the Starbucks employees don't really want to use it. They didn't really care about that too much. It's just certain stores. Was that? Yeah. Well, some people it's full time. Yeah, some people full time. Yeah. So and then it depends if if you're salaried or if you're hourly, it makes a difference. As salary person, I really don't care about the union. Right? It's not really anything that's really gonna concern me too much. As an hourly person, yes, I probably care about the union a little bit more because I'm trying to get more, and I would increase my hourly wages, increase my benefits based on my status. But as a hourly person, as a salary person, I probably don't, unions and not, I don't care for the most part, right? Now, when unions come in and kind of are beneficial is in collective bargaining, right? So, what's that? Yes, ma'am.
So how is it with the $20 for like fast food workers?
How you get there?
Now, how is it? How they determine this is a fast food? So,
Say that again. You say that.
like, they got the increase like $20 per
Uh-huh.
hour for the fast food
Mhm.
workers. How do they determine which store it is?
Oh, which store does it?
Yeah. Which
So-
store has to do it?
Well, it's everything except if
Is it like
they make their own bread. Starbucks or Subway does not make their own bread. They
Yeah.
have to actually knead their own bread, like Panera is exempt from the $20 an hour in California,
Yeah.
out of that.
It depends. The company.
That's like some
Lot of
there are
Yeah.
like food, but I don't know if it's real.
So nationally, federally, I should say, the minimum wage is, $7.25. Okay? That's the minimum wage based on what the government says, all right? Each state will then decide, okay, do I want to pay a minimum wage or am I going to pay something above that, right, to get the employees and the people that I want, right? So now at the federal level, the minimum wage is supposed to go up to $15 by a certain time. Okay, so by 2030 or something like that. Yeah. By 2030 or something like that, the minimum wage federally will be $15. Okay? And so companies have to decide whether or not they want to do that now and just get it over with, or they want to do it later. Either way, it's gonna happen, right? So a lot of companies, what they've done, Starbucks, McDonald's, Walmart, what they've done is they've just incrementally increased the minimum wage, right? So they'll say, look, we know that we have to get to $15 at some point. We're at $10 now because most companies are not paying $7.25 an hour. They're paying more than that, right? And so depending on what the difference is, right, they'll say, okay, well, it's $12 an hour now for in each position, has in different levels, right? But if you are below the minimum wage and everybody needs to get to 15, how are we going to do that, right? Like I was saying earlier, how do we spread that across a certain time frame based on what it is we have to do, right? Based on the objective that we're trying to reach, how is that going to bite into our money, right? And how can we offset that cost? And so in order to just basically stay ahead of the curve, they'll say, okay, next year we're going to bump it up to 13. The year after that, we'll bump it up to 14, right? And then the next year after that, we'll bump it up to 15, right? So it's an incremental, gradual increase of the monies.
Yeah, it's just on, workers on federal contracts, and it was beginning January 30th of 2022. Workers on federal contracts have to make $15 an hour.
Okay.
It wasn't a-
Yeah, right now. But
Yeah.
down the road,
I didn't see
Yeah.
anything beyond.
down the road, it's mandated that the minimum wage is gonna go up because the cost of living has gone up, inflation is up, and they look at the market and every year or so they go and they do an analysis, okay? And they say, okay, what's the median cost of living across the nation? Because it costs different monies to live in different places, right? California probably one of the most expensive states. So the salary is not gonna be $7 an hour. You would never make it here in California, $7 an hour. So guess what? We have to at least start with 12, 13, even $10 an hour. If you go to Texas, the minimum wage there usually is about $10. Okay, starting, and you kind of move up from there. All right. If you go to the Midwest, depending on the size of the city and what the median income is, again, it could start at $10, $11. But every state, every company has what we call a COLA, cost of living allowance, which makes up the difference between what it is the minimum wage is that we are paying and what the cost of living is, right? And so they kind of take that and put that together and say, okay, this is how much your pay is per hour, right? And then every year they go back and recalculate COLA. They say, okay, this is how much you're gonna get an increase in cost of living because houses cost more. It costs more to just go out. It costs more to do certain things, right? And so we need to keep up with that, because if you can't keep up with that, the employees are gonna, they're basically gonna be broke and poor and working 40, 50 hours a week, not making any money. They can't maintain a certain level, all right? Because the poverty level for us is what, $30,000 or something like that? I think it's 30. If you make less than 30,000, I think it's poverty. It's
No,
considered poverty.
20,000.
Is it 20,000? Okay, 20,000. I was
It
mistaken.
raises every year.
Yeah.
Right now, it's depending on what city you're in.
Right.
Location.
Yeah, I don't think, I think it passed the House for
Yeah.
2025, I don't think it passed the Senate.
Then
I
it,
think.
okay, no.
So it didn't, I don't think it ever got passed, cause like I don't know whether it was Congressional Budget Office or one of the other think tanks of it, even though it would increase, it was gonna, it would be a net loss of over $1.4 million
Yeah.
jobs
Yeah.
to increase it. And that's what's happening out here in California.
Mhm.
You go to Taco Bell, you go to McDonald's, you go anywhere, they all have kiosks.
Yeah.
Right.
Because they can put in 3 kiosks and have 1 employee
Right.
instead of 3
Like that.
employees.
And that's all part of,
And then it's
Companies.
654.
okay, appreciate it, thank you. That's all part of companies looking at, how can we automate and reduce the payroll, right? If we're gonna pay people more money, right, can I offset the cost? Well, I'm gonna put 3 kiosks in. Instead of having 3 people, I have 1 person with 3 kiosks. I pay that person $25 an hour, right? But I have 3 kiosks that basically is a one-time cost, and I don't need to pay it anymore, right? Except for maintenance and that kind of thing. And this person, I can justify $25 an hour because it's cheaper than the $75 I was paying collectively per hour for all 3 workers, right? Because now I have these kiosks that are gonna work to help to mitigate the cost, right? So unions are great, but it really is about, collective bargaining when it comes down to unions and really their effectiveness and, their potency, about being able to go to the table as a group and saying, look, we want these particular things, right? A, B, C, D. And you'll find that collective bargaining, a lot of times is useful, especially in the sports industry, basketball, football. They, because there's so many of them and it's a very niche community, you'll find that they'll go in collectively as a group to make sure that they get what they want. The problem with collective bargaining and getting these contracts is that once they're ratified, that's it. You can't go back, right? So whatever the duration of this contract or this agreement is, if it's 5 years and that's just the way it is. So if things get better for the company, say the company, makes $1 billion and you're supposed to get a piece of that. What does the collective bargaining agreement say? You get 5%. Well, you just made $1 billion, so we should get more of that. Nope, 5%. That's what's in the collective agreement, right? Till we get to the next session of collective bargaining, right? Whereas if you don't have any collective bargaining, you don't have a union, you can go in and say, look, you guys made more revenue and it's adjustable, right? And say, hey, 5% of $1 billion, cool. Look, we want 6% now, right? You guys made $1 billion, we want 6%, we want 7%, we want a little more, or whatever the case may be, okay? So you have more flexibility we don't have an agreement in place that's locking you in, right? With the unions. You're non-unionized, yeah, is it more of a fight to get certain things? Absolutely, but now companies are pretty hip to, giving the employees what they are asking for. So usually, initially in your hiring package, you're gonna have all the good stuff. You have vacation, benefits. Depending on your stats. You're part-time, of course, you don't get any of that. But if you're full-time, you get all the benefits. It comes inclusive. And you don't necessarily have to worry about that. What you're really negotiating is your salary at the end of the day, and you're good to go. And whether you're hourly or salary, it's not. You can go. You can always go in and negotiate that, right? As a non-unionized company or person, right? But once you have a union, you really can't do anything too much about it. It is what it is. It's set till we go back to the table. And first you have to get a consensus with the union, the group of workforce people, and then you have to go talk to leadership and then get them to bite off on it, to agree as a whole, because now you're talking about a big chunk of money because there's a huge increase. The 300 people come in and say, hey, we want a 10% raise. That's a lot of money for the company. But you coming and say, I want a 10% raise, no problem. I'll give you 10%, no big deal, right? That's easy. That's whatever. That's $1,000, whatever it is, $2,000, $3,000 a year extra, whatever it is, right? That's no big deal. But multiply that by 300 or 400, and then everything else that comes with that, it starts to get pretty expensive really quick. Okay. All right. What time is it? 6:55.
Yeah,
7?
like 2 till 7.
All right. Let's take 10. Come back at 7:10, and then we're gonna jump into this video a topic that Christopher brought up that's pretty interesting, lines up with this, and then we'll watch a video from there. All right. So come back at 7:10, okay?
Okay.
My button, there you go. All right, so I'm gonna go through this real quick. All right, so let me just go over some of these other acts, right? So employment at will, I think everybody's kind of familiar with the employment at will doctrine, right? Employment at will basically says, I can leave, I can fire you, you can leave without any reason, okay? We both are free to come and go as you please as far as employer-employee relationship, right? I don't have to put in, I have to put in notice, but I don't have to tell you why I'm leaving. And the company doesn't need to tell you why they're firing you, except in certain cases. If there's a contract, right? If you're a federal employee, you can't do that, right? But employment at will, for the most part, is on a state-by-state basis, right? Most states practice employment at will, right? Because it just gives you more latitude as a company to kind of get rid of folks, bring folks in, and you also, you can, use that to your advantage. Opportunities come up, hey, I'm out of here. You just jump ship and you go by your way, right? So it works out pretty good for everybody, right? But these are the exceptions here where you cannot just get up and go. Okay, so for instance, one of the federal employees that can't go work for air traffic controllers, right? It's illegal for them to strike and to just leave work, right? Everybody familiar with air traffic controllers, right? The people at the airport that not down there, but up top that control all the planes in the air. Okay, they by law they cannot just say I'm out, I'm gonna strike or we're gonna leave, right? They can be put in prison for leaving. They have to get permission from the president and the FAA in order to strike and do certain things, right? Because they're deemed as a critical component to our livelihood, right? Imagine you couldn't fly or people couldn't fly. It pretty much would stop everything. There's no commerce, there's nothing going on. People just like, okay. And it happened before in the 80s with Ronald Reagan and, is it Reagan? Oh, first Bush. I can't remember.
Reagan.
Was it? Yeah, where the air traffic controllers basically went on strike, right? Guess what? You guys better go back to work tomorrow or we're gonna get rid of all of you, okay? And we're gonna put you in prison. They went back to work, okay? They went back to work because by law, they can't, that's one of the groups that can't do it. So, but employment at will is a pretty good policy, that's practiced by a lot of companies, a lot of states, I should say, right? So,
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
The others like with an extension to an expression express within a contract. That's contract.
yeah,
Yeah.
what about it?
Is there any company that gives like employment letter here?
They give contracts?
Yeah, no. Employment letter at the point of taking the offer. Is there anything like employment letter taking the work?
Yes. So when you get up with a company, right? Where do you go to get all the rules and all the guidelines and stuff like that? HR, but HR gives you something,
Your employee handbook.
employee handbook, right? And then when you get your employee handbook, 9 times out of 10, they're gonna ask you to sign the employee handbook, okay? At the back, they're gonna ask you to sign it, right? And when you sign it, what you're saying is, I acknowledge that I've read, I understand the contents, and I'm gonna adhere to the rules within the employee handbook. Within the employee handbook, you'll find everything that they have to talk about employment at will and what you can and can't do, okay? So I know it says express written contract, but they're not talking about an employment contract like you would get at a regular job. That's not what they're talking about. They're talking about something outside of that. Like let's just say, you and I have a business deal, right? You sign a contract to deliver 100 widgets, and I say I'm going to pay you for that. That's an express contract, okay? You working for me is different. Is there a contract? Yes, there's a contract, but in that contract, you are free because we practice employment at will. You can get out that contract, right? You can leave whenever you feel like it because it serves both parties, right? There's no transactional thing going, right? Where if me and you have a deal, I'm not offering you services and you're paying me, right? That happens as far as the work contract, but it's just different. It's not the same, right? This here is talking about more of us, having a deal together, and I promise you, 100 widgets, and you gotta pay me this much money, right? Or you have a deal with somebody, you can't just break the contract like that, right? Most companies, if they have a deal with another company or they have a deal with other people, you just can't break contracts. You have to honor the contract, right? But not when it comes to employment law or employment. It's a different type of contract. It's not a contract that's enforceable based because of the employment. If it's an employment at will doctrine state. If it's not an employment at will doctrine state, then yes, you adhere to the contract or whatever the rules are within the company, right? But it's not necessarily an express written contract that you find at work, like, oh, you can't, like if you come on as a special, they hire you as a special something, special agent or special some other thing. You have a specific contract, right? A very express contract. I'm gonna do this for you. I'm gonna serve as your counsel for a certain amount of period of time, yada yada. You just can't break that contract. You just can't go like that. Okay, so different roles, different stuff like that. Terms of implied contract. So same thing. There's a lot of things that aren't necessarily written down in the contract that are understood that need to be done. Okay, nobody. It doesn't say in my contract, come in, turn the lights on, write on the board, sit down, set up the computer. It doesn't say that.
Great papers.
Right, but no, it says grade papers.
Oh,
That it
does
does
it?
say, right? Because that's one of my duties, is to grade.
Is that a reasonable expectation?
Yeah, it's reasonable expectation that you're gonna come in, turn the lights on, set up the classroom, right? I don't need to put that in the contract. It's implied, because it's part of the job, right? Do I get paid for that? No. I don't necessarily get paid for it specifically. It's not what they call a compensable factor, right? When you look at job description, that the KSA, knowledge, skills and abilities, and you look at, those are compensable factors. Like, I have to pay you for that, grading papers, instructing the class, being at meetings, right? It doesn't say anything about me sitting here chit-chatting with you about other things, right? If we're on a break and I'm talking to you, they don't pay me for that. Right? But it's implied that you're going to have conversations with the student, about certain things, right? So that's implied contract. So
Doctor,
all those things, yes,
there is a term for that. It's called tacit. Tacit, I think.
tacit, yeah.
Yeah, it
Tacit,
means like it's supposed you already know that. I mean, we don't
yeah.
need to teach you.
Yeah.
I know
It's
it
a
in French, but actually, apparently, we can use it in English too.
Yeah, no, it's
Tacit.
tacit, it basically comes from the word tactile, or to do with your hands or to experience yourself, right? If you do tactile or tactile, that means you need to experience it. You need to kind of go through it to do it by being an auditory or being someone who just reads things and can understand it. When you're tactile, you actually are involved in the process, and so you have tactic or tactile, whatever it is.
Aesthetic.
Yeah, within the contracts, and it's the same thing as implied, right? We know that we have got to do it. It's just not written down because it'd be silly to kind of write it down. We know, hey, I wake up in the morning, I have to breathe, right? It's not in my contract. I got to breathe, right? Got to eat. Well, I don't have to eat, but you understand? You get what I'm saying? All right, good question though, Joshua. All right, so employment at will, all right. Civil Rights Act of 1866 was the first Civil Rights Act that was put out, and basically it allowed citizens to enter into contract with each other. Okay, and so what's important about this is that during this time frame, what was considered a citizen, who was considered a person, a human, is the important aspect of this, right? So this did not cover or include minorities
Or women.
or women, right? This was a white male protection.
Depending on where they were though. Because I think in the north, there was already a lot of.
Yeah, but they didn't really enforce it.
Different
Yeah.
laws up there.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean,
they had
that
different-
kind of was a little bit, but not really, not
No.
necessarily, for this federally, it came down to, okay, the wording, the language, and yeah, it probably got enforced differently in certain areas, right? In the north, it probably got enforced a little differently versus the south or the Midwest or even the West Coast. It got enforced differently, and the industries were different in those days, right? On the West Coast, what was going on really during this time period? Gold rush, right? You had a bunch of miners and people that were kind of in this kind of like, I don't call it gig industry, but this industry that wasn't regulated as yet, right? It was kind of like the Wild Wild West, right? You get in, you found some gold, cool, right? But there were really no regulations to really say, oh, I'm obligated to you, this and that, and, I can enter a contract. People would individually enter contracts with each other, right? But they would have no protection. Basically, if someone says, I'm not gonna honor this contract, there was no place to go with it. We'd have to figure it out amongst ourselves, okay? So this is the first version of it, all right? 1871, they kind of give a little bit more, but at the same time, although they got the right to sue, it really didn't take a hold, okay? It wasn't really until the Industrial Revolution that these civil rights acts that started really to kind of gel and form, right? And then even then, a majority of folks, the way they were living was agrarian, right? In the rural areas, they weren't in cities. They were farmers. They lived off the land, right? It wasn't until the Industrial Revolution that people left their land and moved to the cities to work for other people, right? Where your service, your labor became your valuable asset, right? And so all these laws, right, they kind of were okay, but they really didn't start to really take effect or really play a role in how we have it today until the Industrial Revolution. Right?
Why would they say the second point is no remedy for unjust treatment?
Yeah, there was no, so they basically, if you and I had a contract and you said, I'm not gonna honor the contract, that was it. There was nothing, there was no place for me to go say, hey, federal government or lawyer or anybody, judge, your honor. Joshua said he's got an honor contract. He agreed he'd buy 100 cows from me at this price. And Joshua was just, I feel like it.
Well, we should have the written documents to back it up,
No, it is. It's a contract, but there was no way, there was nothing you could do if someone said they weren't gonna honor the contract. You gotta go back and think about how people did business back then. Handshake, right? A lot of bartering. We didn't really have, not everybody had money necessarily, like physical money, okay? So basically it was like, hey, yeah, you got a farm, you grow corn, I'll give you corn, you build me a house. I give you corn, you come be my doctor, all right? I need some service done, yeah, no problem. What you got? Well, I'm a, blacksmith. Cool. I need this done to my horses, things like, so it was a borrowing system. So a lot of times people would get into contracts and they necessarily wouldn't honor them because they need the need diminished or they got a better deal someplace else. But there was no place for them to go for someone who voided out a contract. I couldn't go anywhere and say, hey, this person legally said they were gonna do this for me, and then now I'm out of luck, right? They were like, well, I'll figure it out. So this is when you got, duels and you got,
Wild, Wild West.
Wild Wild West, people shooting each other, right? Because now I don't have anything, I have no place to go. The only thing I can do is I can shoot you. I can beat you up physically if I could, right? That's it. I have no legal ramifications to, kind of go and remedy my situation, right? So I mean, of course, it's the first version of it. It's a work in progress. America's relatively still young, right? This is only 100 years, basically, after America was founded, right? And the United States, for the most part, is still not fully formed. Like, you got the whole west of the Mississippi, it's just kind of open terrain for the most part, right? When you go down to like Texas, California, it's still pretty Mexico. It's still pretty much Mexico at this point, right? And so there's a lot of things going on, Manifest Destiny, you still have Native Americans on land, there's a lot of things happening, and so it was a work in progress. All right, Equal Pay Act 1963, we'll kind of talk, we're gonna watch the video on this, but basically, this act was put in place to make sure that people got paid based on their skill set and didn't receive a lower pay because of their gender or, equal pay for equal work. Okay, so if I did the same amount of work you did, then should expect the same amount of compensation, right? And there should be no factor as far as gender and that kind of thing. But that doesn't work out, because of the way our society was at that point, right? Usually the man went out, made money, and the woman stayed at home to raise the kids and manage the household, okay? And so the value for, most families, when it came to the woman, was at the home, okay? You really can't put a price on raising kids and taking care of a house, and keeping it all together. I can put a price on somebody going to work, right? And so when they start putting this in and women started to gravitate towards the workforce, right? Talking about feminism and all this other stuff happening, the hippie movement, all this other stuff, right? The 60s were kind of loose and fancy free, all right? And so as women started to come into the workforce more, now it became the point of, okay, women are coming to take men's jobs, all right? That was the mindset, right? You're coming in, this is a man's job. Why do we need women? They shouldn't be in here, right? They shouldn't be coal miners, they shouldn't be pilots, they shouldn't be doctors, they shouldn't be scientists, they shouldn't be anything. Okay? And so when they did come, they always end up getting the short end of the stick. Like, okay, well, we're not gonna pay as much as John. Oh no, you're doing the same job. We're not gonna pay you that much. Okay? Is the kind of way it is, right? And so we'll watch the video that Chris had brought up about how that isn't just it's not a linear problem, right? The way we looked at it previously was just like, it was straightforward, like just took one blank median pay and divided it by, whatever metric, and then said, okay, well, men get paid this much, women get paid that much. It's not that as simple as that, right? But the notion for a long time has been that it's a very straightforward problem, but it's not. All right. So pretty good point, but we'll watch a video on it in a minute. All right. So this is the big one. All right. Civil Rights Act 1964, Title VII. Right. This is where they made some major improvements to the civil rights and the labor force, and really preventing discrimination, at least having legislation about discrimination against the protected classes, right? Race, gender, religion, creed, sexual orientation didn't come until 1991 or so with Bill Clinton. But basically, there's a group of folks that they were aiming for, saying, look, these folks are on the same level as you, right? And I'm just gonna say, white males, right? And because that was what the workforce was predominantly comprised of, was white males, right? And so that was the standard, right? But then everybody else was kind of down here, right? And so to bring everybody to a level playing field, like, we have to put some protections in for minorities that are not getting opportunities the same or equal to the white male, right? The Caucasian male. And so this is really what, came aboard and just codified a lot of things for our federal labor laws, okay? And saying, look, as a company, if you have 15 or more people, you need to adhere to these rules, okay? You're not going to discriminate because somebody's a woman. You're not discriminate because, somebody is, Muslim, right? You can't, it's illegal, you can't do that. You have to go off the merits of what the person is bringing to the table as far as the job. If they are qualified, and they meet the requirements, then you should hire them, right? It should not be, oh, they're more qualified than the person you're hiring, but you're hiring that other person because the other person is white. Okay? So, and as Chris alluded to, that included women, right? Women are a minority group, right? White, black, purple, don't matter. Women are considered a minority group to a certain extent, okay? But even then, this particular act was, to help them also, right? Everybody that wasn't a white male, basically, this was something that could assist them, okay? Now, I know the thought is a lot of times people don't know the same. Think about, like, not all white males were bad. It wasn't like that. It's just that certain paradigms, certain mindsets were very prevalent in the organization or in our corporate structure, right? And so it wasn't always necessarily that everybody was like, yeah, we're gonna, don't hire them and hire us. It was just the time. It was just the age. That time period, that's how America operated, all right? Just like now, we operate differently, okay? And so you can't necessarily attribute the sins of the past to the people in the present, okay? But that's how we legislate a lot of things, right? We look at the past and say, well, these things were done, right, by our forefathers. So we need to remedy them in the present. But the present folks are not the same folks as the past, right? The people that committed these particular atrocity violations, they're not the same people as we are now, right? So it's a balance that you have to find in order to, make sure you accommodate those folks that have been discriminated against, but also don't admonish the folks that are presently here. Just because my grandfather was involved in it, that has nothing to do with me, right? I didn't do it. It wasn't necessarily my fault. So you gotta have to balance those things. But the Civil Rights Act 1964, CRA 64, Title 7 kind of covers basically everything, right? As long as you have 15 or more employees, you have to adhere to Civil Rights Act 1964, except for certain entities. Okay? One entity that doesn't necessarily subscribe to this is anybody? Church. Okay? Churches. Any religious institution, they don't have to adhere to this, all right? They basically can go, well, you're not Christian, so we can't let you in this Christian church. We're not gonna hire you. Or if your gender or your sexual orientation doesn't really line up with what we like, we don't have to hire you, okay? The other thing is, like I said, 15 or more employees. You got 14 employees, doesn't apply to you, okay? Because the assumption is that you're a close-knit group, you got to figure it out, right? And if you don't adhere to Title 7, you don't, behave in a fair and equitable manner, more likely you're going to get sued, right? So that kind of fixes itself, right? So no big deal. But this is probably the most pivotal piece of legislation that we've had in our society to help make sure that everybody is on the same level and doesn't get discriminated. Is it perfect? No, right? It's never gonna be perfect. The legislation may be written perfectly, the execution is not, right? Because people are involved, okay? That's it. That's the bottom line. People are involved, you're always gonna have some problems, right? So the laws are out there, doesn't necessarily mean that we always follow them, right, to the letter. ADA or age discrimination, 1967. So probably in the last, I don't know, in the 60s and 70s, even in the 80s, right? If you were over 40,
You're like old.
you're
not
old.
like-
Yeah, but you were old, right? You were considered old, as far as a worker, right? In the workforce, right? Now, what's considered old? 75, right? You're not really old, right? Our president is 82, 81. He's the president, right? Donald Trump is running for president. He's 76 or 77 or something like that, right? They're old, right? So this whole thing has changed, right? But the concept behind it, the thought behind hiring a person who's older versus hiring a person who's hired, that is still around, right? This is why this law is still in place, right? Because when you go to companies and if they have to choose between, they say they have to choose between, Chris and I are the same age, right? So Chris and I go in for an interview, right? But one of you other guys go in, right? Who do you think they're gonna pick? Who? Yeah, they're gonna pick you guys, right?
They
Yeah.
pay you less.
They pay you less. They'll pay you less, and you're gonna take less because you don't have as much experience as Chris and I, right? So what they're paying for with Chris and I is experience, and they don't want to pay that. Why would I pay either one of these guys $200,000 when I could pay you 75,000. I can teach you what I need to teach you. I could mold you the way I want, and you're gonna take it because you know why? It's your first job. It's your second job. You don't really care. You just want a job. You just want to get in, right? And you probably don't have any responsibilities. You probably don't have any obligations. Probably single, no kids. But Chris, I'm single, no kids. But Chris,
I'm a date,
right,
dual income, no kids.
right. But that's good, right? But most people are not. Most people have kids by the time in the 50s. Their kids are kind of grown. But think about,
Crap, we're in our 50s.
huh?
Crap, we're in our 50s.
Yeah, right. So think about that, right? They're going to hire the younger folks because the younger folks are going to be less of a financial burden. But also the younger folks usually are the ones that are more in tune with the new technology, the new things that are out there, right? And so if I want to keep up with the market, I'm not worried about the old geezer, right? If I'm worried about the market. If I'm worried about innovation and developing and progressing, I'm not worried about the old people. I'm worried about the young people and what they think. When do I worry about the old people? In what aspect do I worry about older folks?
Voting.
Voting, yes. But what?
Experience.
Experience, yeah, okay. But from a company perspective, when do I care about what old people think? Or why? So think about a lifespan. Think about you from 20 to 50, right? What changes for most folks between 20 and 50?
Your memory.
What's that? Your memory? Yeah. Right. Your memory does go very quickly.
By the way, doctor, it's 7:30. You asked me to remind you last time.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Rad.
No problem.
Well, major life events happen.
Major life events happen, right? But what happens to you?
You age.
You age, okay.
You gain experience.
You gain experience, but what happens in your job cycle, in your job life cycle?
You're moving from
Your professional cycle.
You're advancing.
You're advancing, right?
You're losing interest because there's not much.
No.
I mean, you're
It's more
changing
than what
jobs.
Chris is saying.
You're changing jobs.
You're changing jobs, right?
Disengagement. No?
The what?
You gain a lot of experience.
Right, but what you mean was that
Competency.
thing? What happened?
Competency? Is it competency?
No. You get it. What'd you say?
You ask for more money.
You ask for more money, right?
Grown.
Okay, so you have all these jobs, right? You're moving up the ladder, okay? You make more money. What does more money allow you to do?
What do you want?
Exactly what you want, right? You have more buying power, okay? So as a leader or as somebody who's worried about the bottom line of the company, if I'm looking to see where I'm going to put my dollars as far as marketing, as far as like actual purchasing of certain things, I'm looking at the buying power of the people I'm targeting, right? A 20-year-old cannot go out and buy a yacht. 50-year-old probably can, right? A 10-year-old probably has no money to buy a house. A 50-year-old probably has a house, a vacation home, and some other thing. Okay? So the buying power is what I'm concerned about because that's the present. All right? If I'm thinking about innovation and technology and longevity and being around another 100 years, I'm worried about a 20-year-old. Because guess what? They have another 30 years till they get here, right? You know what I can do in those 30 years? You know how much money I can get from you? Okay? This is the philosophy that cigarette companies use. You know,
Apple.
and Apple
But
too,
it's
right?
difficult to keep 20 years old.
What?
It's difficult to keep them because they are still like coming up.
Exactly, right.
The opportunity.
Right.
So the tendency of that one changing job, over
Right.
and over,
Mhm.
as turnover.
Right.
And why the 50 years want to settle at this time is not ready to run again.
They're not going anywhere, right? That's why they're stable. That's why if I'm looking to see who's buying stuff, I'm looking at the 50-year-old because the 50-year-old, normally, they make up their mind to buy something, they can go buy it right now. 20-year-old wants to buy something, I'll buy it in a year. I'm gonna save up my money. You know what? I'm gonna job hopping. I took 6 months off because I wanted to go to Ibiza, right? I want to hang out with my friends. I want to travel the world. I want to experience stuff, right? I'm making $5 an hour at Starbucks, right? I'm not making $5 an hour at Starbucks at 50. Not that there's not people out there doing that, but at the same time, it's probably their second job, right? Like, I have a retirement. Christopher has a retirement. This is my second income, even my third, because I have other things going on, right? A normal 20-year-old, well, it's no different nowadays, because 20-year-olds, they're on YouTube and they're doing all kind of other stuff, making big money. You know, that's a different type era, you know, where now 20-year-olds do have buying power, but their buying power is rather unstable at times, right? Whereas you get to this age, you pretty much are set in your ways, kind of know what's going on with your life. You know what your fixed income is. There's not too much variance or variability in here. Here, it's all over the place. Okay, so depending on what I'm looking at the company, I will decide what I want to do. But companies, when it comes to hiring folks, they're looking at this person like, okay, if I need stability, if I need experience, I'll bring this person on, but I'll bring this person on as a consultant, special something, right? Yeah, but if I want somebody that I can bring up and groom at the entry level, I'm getting a 20-something-year-old, right? Because I know they have more time in the workforce. More than likely, they're gonna stick around, right? And there's another thing that you don't have to worry about with 20-year-olds that you have to worry about with 50-year-olds or older folks. Health, right? A 20-year-old, more than likely, I don't have to pay too much in insurance stuff with that person. 50-year-old, we're broke everywhere. My knees hurt, back hurt, I'm fat, you know, I'm all kind of stuff. I gotta go to the doctor every 2 days, right? Cancer, whatever it is, right? 20-year-old, yeah, whatever. Yeah, they're healthy, they'll be fine, right? And not till we get to like 35, they start, okay, we're gonna start worrying about them now, right? Except for women, but that's, you know, that's kind of written into now the whole expenditure. Like, okay, we're expecting women to get pregnant at some point, so put that in there somehow. You know, the 12 weeks for maternity leave and all that kind of stuff, right? That's kind of written in there. Military service, right? If somebody's in the military and they work a civilian job, if that person gets called to active duty, they have to keep the job open for that person or a job similar to that till the person comes back, no matter how long they're gone for. Right?
Maternity leave?
Huh?
Maternity leave?
No, military.
Yeah, but
Maternity leave, same
Maternity leave
thing.
as well.
Yeah, same
Yeah,
thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Under, especially under
they need to
FMLA.
keep the job for you.
Yeah, they have to keep the job for you, or they have to keep something open that you can come right back to that is at the same pay level
Yeah.
and responsibility. They can't like get rid of you, demote you, that kind of thing. This is where the Pregnancy Discrimination Act comes in, right? All right, so for the sake of time, I really want to watch this video. It's not the same video you sent, Christopher. It's a different video, but along the same lines. And really, this video talks about, you know, the myth about that we have for equal pay, right? So the thought is that, you know, women don't get paid the same as men, all right? Or they get paid less because they're women. And so that's been a prevailing thought for a long time. But if you do deeper analysis and you really think about it and you look at what's out there, that really is not the case, right? Because there's so many different factors that go into that whole thing. But a lot of people don't necessarily do the research. So this video just kind of talks about debunking the myth and trying to figure out, you know, what it really means to say there's a pay gender gap. Seems my computer decided to start.
Professor, this video, the voice didn't, the video, so the sound,
You can't hear it?
I cannot hear it. But
Okay. That's weird. Let's see here. Payment system meeting out. Huh. Hold on, give me a minute. Let me see something real quick. Yes. I'm gonna try this. Is that better?
Yes. I'm sorry, no. Once this just starts, like there is just a music that's all it.
What'd you say?
There is just music on and off, but I couldn't hear like the what the guy is talking about.
You still can't hear what he's saying?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Or Professor, if you can post the link on the chat, I can watch it on my browser.
Yeah, that's weird. All right, should be able to do it. I don't know what's okay. All right, it's gonna do it real quick. I will. Where's it at? Where's it at? Where's it at? Where's my share button?
Up top, the stop share.
No. I'm looking for the share button on the actual YouTube video.
Go to
Make this up to 7.
So make it not a full screen. Go to the, and then,
No.
oh, because you're not directly in YouTube. Oh, scroll down,
Yeah,
go, see the three dots?
there, yeah,
Should be, yeah.
yeah, there it is.
So there should be, oh, at the top right, it says share,
You see it? Oh, there it is,
Top right.
okay. We appreciate it, thank you.
and then,
Technology sometimes sucks. Yeah. Nara, can you hear me now?
No, there is no,
No, there's no sound.
yeah, no sound.
Okay.
Brad, do you hear this one?
Huh?
No, there's no sound, Nada.
There's no
Okay,
sound?
yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna do as the class suggested, all right? So, yeah. I'm going to put it in the chat,
Sure.
okay? And just go
Yeah,
to the
just
chat and
receive.
watch it, and I'm gonna show it in the class, but watch it on your computer. Okay?
Okay.
Okay. All right, so we will talk about this next week. Okay? Any questions? No? Okay. All right, make sure everybody go in and, we kind of touched on some of the stuff from the PowerPoint, but go in, familiarize yourself with the different acts that are really, kind of the high level acts that most companies really deal with. And then there's another PowerPoint, on staffing. So check that out also, okay? Pretty straightforward, nothing too crazy. All right, this week, group RDs are due. All right, so get those in on Sunday, by midnight, and then that's pretty much it, right? No. Oh, the, lit reviews due, okay? So with the lit review, I'm not looking for a finished product. I'm looking just to see what you have thus far. Okay? So, but don't turn in like half a page. I'm expecting a little bit more from the lit review, but, huh? Give me whatever you got, but I'm hoping you're a little bit further along than just half a page. So at least 2-3 pages of your literature review. Okay? And does anybody understand what it means to have a literature review?
No.
Okay, so if you pull out the APA, so real quick, okay? and-
Even though like it needs to be there, why I chose this literature, right? What is the main important and then like supporting one?
Yeah, sort of, but really the literature review is about, so this is the different parts of the paper, right? Intro, lit review, methodology, discussion, no, results actually, results, findings, whatever, discussion, and then conclusion. Okay? So this is a setup of a it should be 5 chapter, but kind of a 5 chapter dissertation. Okay? So the way that the school does it is every week you do a piece of it, right? The first week you did the title, right? The second week you did justification. All right, this will kind of all go into the intro. All right. The lit review, basically, what you're doing is you are providing me a summary of all the research and literature that's out there associated with your topic. All right. So anybody that's ever done research on the topic that you're talking about as far as strategic HR and, I don't know, banking, strategic HR and healthcare, all the literature that's been published and is out there up to this point, you should do an exhaustive analysis of all that research, right? And pulling out the ones that help to support your point, right? So you can start with the genesis of, let's start HR and medical, right? The first, real HR effort in the medical field was in 1956, right? And in 1956, I don't know, Freud said this or Freud did that and said this came out of it or whatever the case may be. So you're giving me background. It's basically building a foundation, a background about, okay, what has been said about this particular topic? What research has been done about this topic? And you just bring it up all the way up to date, okay? And it's supposed to be an exhaustive, like you're supposed to look at all the research and exhaust all the possibilities of things that you can actually look into as far as research, right? And so as you're doing your lit review, you will find that there'll be an occurrence of the same name, Freud, Maslow, like, particular area. And then that will tell you, okay, where are the gaps? Right? If they're talking about, strategic HR and medicine, and specifically, how, the hours that are allocated to doctors or whatever the case may be, whatever topic they're talking about, right? What haven't they talked about? Okay? The area where they haven't talked about or there hasn't much research might be a topic of interest to me that I can research and add to the body of work that exists already out there. So now I become part of the literature review for someone else down the road, right? But for you, in this aspect, all you're doing is giving me the background about the literature and the information that's out there about your particular topic as it relates to strategic HR and what has been done in that field, right? I don't expect it to be exhaustive because it's a paper and not a dissertation. So stick to basically, if there's a beginning to your topic, give me the background. Like back in 1950, these guys were in the lab and, or whatever 80s, Bill Gates was in his garage and he started Microsoft, right? That's where it all started. Then kind of give me the progression, how it's come along, right? In, 1990, Balmer, right? His partner, came out with this, right? They came out with the Microsoft Office Suite, right? PowerPoint was invented, right? You kind of give me the background of what it is that you're talking about, right? That's what a literature review is. It's just a summary of all the research and all the publications that have been put out there about the particular topic. Okay? Okay? Because you're gonna have to do this, I promise you, is gonna be the hardest part of your dissertation. The hardest and the longest. Okay, because you have to read endless amounts of data and research for it to be exhausted. Yes.
Yeah, quick question. So,
Yeah.
that aspect where I always get confused is where you talk about different parts of this literature. Like you talk about we have I'm trying to remember, the best literature is usually, has three parts. I think the first one is description. I'm trying to remember those, captions under literature review. What you are to do in each of them is a problem.
Okay.
Like you just capture everything we have to do under literature review. But each of them, I'm trying to remember what you call them. Literature review, this aspect, second aspect, third aspect.
So, I mean, in the literature review, that's basically, you're looking at the background, right, the origins. You're looking at what's been done presently, right? And then you probably look at what's being done or being talked about for the future.
You talk about analytical.
Oh, analytical, qualitative, quantitative.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the aspect.
So that's more in your methodology, right? That's your methodology. When you talk about the lit review, you can talk about qualitative, quantitative, but it's in reference to what kind of research was done, right? Again, Bill Gates, started Microsoft. How did he start Microsoft? What kind of research did he do? He probably did some quantitative research, right? His data is quantitative in nature. It's numbers. Okay, so you can describe that, if you do a qualitative, that's the methodology. Is where qualitative really comes in. What kind of research are you doing? Are you doing research that, you're gonna hand out a survey and it's gonna have a Likert scale, 1 to 10. On a scale of 1 to 10, tell me how you feel. I'm a 5, right? That's quantitative. On, if I'm asking the same question, I can ask you differently. How you feeling? I'm excited. I'm anxious. Describing something. Right?
Strongly agree, strongly disagree.
Right, strongly disagree. That's qualitative. In nature, right? Quantitative is always number techniques, right? But the literature review, you know, you can talk about qualitative and quantitative, but, you know, you're basically surmising all the literature on all the publications. Qualitative, quantitative if you want, quantitative research, and this is what they said. On the qualitative research, this is what just say, hey, this research was done by such and such. They started in 19Ks and Associate et al. You know, did a research study here, and they said da da da. Out of this came, you know, this, which was a precursor to the study that, you know, Anna did, you know, or something like that in the 90s. So you're basically giving me the timeline and giving me a short synopsis on each particular researcher and what they did and what was published and what's out there. So I have a good idea about what it is that you're going to talk to me about, and I have a good foundation to start from. So when I go into your discussion, right, I understand where you came from. Now this is where we're at, right, based on my research. This is what I found. Okay, so just, you know, do your best, put it together, and we'll make it work. But I'm not looking for your complete lit review, because your lit review is going to be the longest part of any of your papers that you do. It just is, because there's a bunch of, depending on your topic, there's a lot of stuff out there, right? So you can be working on your lit review for the longest time, right? And that's going to be the hardest part of your dissertation, I promise you. You're going to start writing your lit review, and you're going to start pulling your hair out. Because everything else is simple. Methodology is simple. Once you figure out how you're going to do your research, the discussion is simple. You know, the findings are the findings. And then your discussion, you're just discussing what you found and backing it up with the stuff you had in lit review, right? You just go back to your lit review and say, hey, they did the same thing in the 60s, got the same results, sort of. I did it in 2024. Yeah, kind of the same, but I had different factors and that kind of thing, and this is the results we got. All right?
Even with these methods, the result is the same. Or maybe
Right, yeah,
just
yeah.
change it.
Yeah, however you want to pose it. However you want to pose it. You know, but the lit review should be a couple pages that you turn in to me on Sunday, but I'm not expecting it to be the complete lit review. You understand what I'm saying? Because I know everybody writes differently at different pace. Some people are literally gonna wait the week of, and they're gonna write the paper. Other people have already started writing the paper and they're done. They're just kind of proofing it and just making sure it's good to go the way they like. All right. So everybody has different phases in the way they write. So, but the lit review you submit on Sunday, just make it presentable, make it respectable. How about that? Okay. Joshua's fine. All right, Zoom. Any questions?
No question, Professor.
Okay, I appreciate you guys. I will see you guys next week, okay? Rad, get better.
Thank you, sir. And see you next week physically in the classroom.
There you go. All right. Me and Matt, I'll see you later. I'm glad the
Yes,
baby's
doctor.
doing good.
Everything is great, thank you.
Good. And you tell your husband I'll call him this weekend, okay?
Dr. Case, a very quick question. Is
Yes.
it disrespectful to call doctor sir, or it works?
No, I'm fine. I don't care.
I mean,
Yeah, I don't.
generally speaking, I mean, if I call doctors sir, it's not.
I don't take it as a sign of disrespect, so I don't think anybody else will.
Okay, I trust you. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, Ruben, I'll talk to you later. You good,
Thank
right?
you. Sorry?
Okay. No, I just want to make sure you're good.
Yep.
Okay. All right. I'll see you guys next week.
See you.
See you, doctor. Bye-bye. Have a good one. Bye-bye.